Seth Widener here. Today I'm going to show you how I made these salt and pepper shakers out of mahogany and poplar. I started by gluing a thin strip of poplar to a piece of mahogany and a thin piece of mahogany to a strip of poplar. Once these dried, I cut the pieces in half and glued them together to make a square profile. I then used the sled on my table saw to cut these down to shaker size pieces. Using a 1 5/8" Forstner bit, I drilled the cavities to hold the salt and pepper. Mahogany with a strip of poplar, poplar top and bottom. Poplar sides, strip of mahogany, mahogany top and bottom. Got to do a lot of sanding on these. Today I'm going to trim off the excess of the top and bottom using a trim router with the flush trim bit. So I took some engineering paper, cut 2x2 squares out of it because that's the shape of my salt and pepper shakers, and laid out my pattern with 1 in the center and 4 on each side. I'm drilling them with the drill press with a 5/64 bit. I used a 1/16 on my first try and it seems too small in the set we're using as a trial, so I'm going with the 5/64. For stoppers in the bottom of these salt and pepper shakers, I have several of these rubber stoppers. I think they're for liquor bottles or wine bottles. They are just over 7/8 of an inch diameter on the bottom piece. In the bottom of these I've drilled out with my 1 5/8", which is the same size as the inside bore to hold the salt and pepper, and I left a plug in the bottom, and from the bottom I bored in out enough to cover the lip on these, and then I drilled a 7/8 inch hole. I'm reaming it out with a sanding drum from a Dremel that I've attached to my drill press, and I'll show that to you in a second. And I've taken several of these plugs and I've cut 2 sides off of it so that when you stick it in there you can still kind of get a finger on each side and twist it and pull it out. These don't have to be a real tight fit, so I'm going to sand them until they're a snug fit. I've drilled 5 holes in the tops of each of these. There will be a pair, one with the poplar top, one with mahogany top, and I'll let the customer decide which one's salt and which one's pepper. This is my Dremel sanding drum in the drill press. I'm going to sand this out. It's a little bit tight. A little more sanding. And it really just starts grabbing. It's most of the way in there. That's enough to keep it from falling out. It won't move. And you can remove it. I'm using 150 grit sandpaper on a flat board to smooth out my rough edges and cuttings from the holes that I drilled. Now I'm going to use the random orbital sander with 220 grit, and I like to turn it on and off a lot to keep the RPMs down some, to make it easier, especially when I start rounding over the corners. And then I use the shop vac to try and a little bit of dust control. Sometimes I use this just as basically a sanding block, just to knock the sharp edges off. Still sanding with the grain. And around over the corners a little bit. I think that's ready for oil. I'm using cutting board oil as a finish / protectant for the salt and pepper shakers. Try something a little different. Put some in a bag. I'm going to try and get some, coat the inside well, but I don't want a bunch of excess in there, so I'm not sure how well it's going to work. So I've got some other ones I'm going to try out first, just to see how well I think it works.